We begin tonight with a mystery unfolding on a BC beach. A human foot has once again been discovered.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at creepy mysteries that received closure in the 21st century.
Today, the FBI confirmed that the cipher attributed to the Zodiac killer has been solved by private citizens.
2000, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
It's only with the heart that one can see clearly. What's essential is invisible to the eye.
A notable French writer, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry is best known for writing The Little Prince, which was first published in 1943. Just 1 year later, Saint-Exupéry disappeared while flying a reconnaissance mission in World War II, leaving Corsica to photograph German troops in southern France. Saint-Exupéry never returned, leading to decades of speculation. Some naturally thought he was shot down. Others thought he used the plane to fly away and live off his riches in peace and solitude. As no wreckage was ever found, anything seemed possible. But in 2000, parts of the plane were finally located off the coast of Marseille, and in 2008, German Luftwaffe veteran Horst Rippert claimed that he likely shot down Saint-Exupéry back in 1944. However, his claim remains disputed.
Then I haven't done you much good, have I? It's all been a waste of time.
Oh? Because you wasted so much time on me. You made me feel very important.
2001, the Green River Killer identified.
FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole is using a carefully devised psychological strategy in her interrogation of the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway. Her goal is to get him to confess to 44 unsolved homicides where no physical evidence exists that could link him to the crimes.
For nearly 2 decades, the Green River Killer terrorized Washington state, claiming the lives of dozens of women and eluding one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history. Between 1982 and 1998, investigators discovered more than 40 victims along the Green River and surrounding areas, but the murderer's identity remained a mystery. That changed in November 2001, when DNA technology finally linked truck painter Gary Leon Ridgway to several of the killings.
It started at an early age, but sex and hurting the woman.
And he loved being able to talk, finally, after all these years. And in doing so, he kind of walked us down the path of all of his murders. At one point, Gary referred to himself as something like the lean, mean killing machine, and he was very efficient, like a machine.
His arrest brought long-awaited closure to families and ended a case that had haunted law enforcement for years. Ridgway ultimately confessed to murdering 71 women, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in American history, and proving that even the most elusive predators cannot outrun science forever.
And he would drive up to them, and sometimes he'd even have his son's toys in the front seat, and that would be a very effective ruse to convince these women that, hey, I can't be that serial killer. I've got my little boy's toys in the car. He was a very normal, kind of vanilla type looking person, and there was nothing that stood out about him.
2002. The missing Japanese citizens.
Takashi Fujita hasn't seen his brother Susumu for 40 years, since the day he disappeared on his way to work. But 10 years ago, he heard reports of a man who fit his description, teaching Japanese in North Korea, and then obtained this picture that he believes is proof that Susumu was abducted.
Between 1977 and 1983, a number of Japanese citizens disappeared under suspicious circumstances, often near coastal areas. At the time, these disappearances were treated as isolated missing persons cases, with few to no leads. The fact that they occurred near the coast suggested that they simply fell in the water and were carried away, but some people suspected foul play. They were right. Fast forward to the 1990s, when North Korean defectors began to speak publicly about secret abduction operations. And in a shocking admission in 2002, Kim Jong-il acknowledged that North Korea had kidnapped over a dozen Japanese citizens, and a number of survivors were returned to their families. Unfortunately, a number also died under North Korean captivity.
It is a story that could well be a spy movie, a thriller set right in the heart of the Cold War. But above all, it's a deep trauma for dozens of families.
2003. The Centennial Olympic Park criminal.
It looks almost like a block party in downtown Murphy as smiling people gather to celebrate the capture of Eric Robert Rudolph.
That was former morning anchor Jay Siltzer breaking the news to viewers here in western North Carolina and beyond. The year, 2003. A rookie police officer in Murphy, Jeff Postel, finding Rudolph rummaging through a dumpster behind a Save-A-Lot.
On July 27, 1996, Atlanta's Centennial Olympic Park was bombed during the Summer Olympic Games. The blast injured hundreds, but thanks to the heroic efforts of security guard Richard Jewell, direct deaths were limited to 2 people. Jewell himself was initially pegged as the culprit, but he was eventually cleared and the case remained a mystery for several years. The FBI was eventually led to a man named Eric Rudolph, who had committed various other bombings across the American South. Rudolph was finally arrested in 2003 and pleaded guilty to all charges. He was given 4 life sentences and is currently held in a supermax prison in Colorado.
There's no telling how many times we've been right here, right on top of him and not known.
That was Jeff Postel showing News 13 where he caught the fugitive. Eric Rudolph, to this day, is serving 4 life sentences.
2004, BTK.
On February 25th, 2005, when I found out my father was arrested, this place became not my home, and no one ever slept in my house again.
He calls himself the BTK Strangler and promises to kill again.
BTK's brutal crimes shocked Wichita.
Some serial killers are brought down thanks to clever police work, and some are brought down through sheer hubris. BTK terrorized the greater Wichita area between 1974 and 1991, murdering at least 10 individuals and taunting the police with threatening letters. Despite their best efforts, police were unable to identify BTK, and the case remained a mystery for decades.
When BTK came forward, everybody's life changed. He would see a woman walking and he would say, "She's next."
1 minute, you had a loving father.
Right.
The next minute, he's a serial killer. I mean, come on. The child of a serial killer actually talking about it? That's something you almost never hear.
But in 2004, BTK once again started corresponding with the media and police, haunting them with decades-old murder cases. He ultimately sent a floppy disk to the Wichita station KSAS-TV, and police used metadata from the disk to trace its sender. And with this, Dennis Rader was caught and identified as BTK. He was arrested in 2005, 31 years after murdering his first victim.
Overnight, we called 200 policemen. We had helicopters. We had resources we had a tank.
We pull him over, and before he can hardly get in the park, we're yanking him out of the car. We put him down, and he looked at the detective that had handcuffed him and said, "Would you let my wife know I won't be home for lunch? I assume you know where I live." And I got chills.
2005, the collapse of the Maya civilization.
20.25, 19.87, 1, 15, 1.5, 18.75.
Much to his delight, Mexico's meticulous weather records revealed just what he'd hoped to find.
The largest and most sophisticated pre-Columbian civilization of the Americas, the Maya flourished for thousands of years. The civilization entered its so-called classic period in the year 250, and this lasted until 900. It was around then that the entire political system collapsed, and the Maya abandoned their most important cities to move north. With this, the Maya civilization entered what is called its post-classic period. So what the heck happened? It's a mystery that has plagued historians for years.
These reports that are contained in these books here are reports made by the Spanish colonial authorities to their superiors in Mexico City or in Madrid. And this one, for example, that I found is a plea for help from the authorities in Yucatan.
The answer was finally found in the 21st century. It turns out the Maya were so overpopulated that they damaged the environment and created a devastating drought. With their agriculture thoroughly destroyed, the Maya were forced to abandon their most populous cities.
It was really a pretty bad drought. In fact, it happened in 1902, 1903, and 1904. And given the fact that really severe drought is so rare, we're really pretty lucky that it showed up in this 100-year record that we have here.
2006, the murder of Adrienne Shelly.
She craved having her voice heard and her vision be out there.
From when she was 5 years old, when she was in kindergarten, she always stood out. It was always Adrienne.
It happened quickly. In no time, she was the star of this indie cult film.
When actress and filmmaker Adrienne Shelly was found dead in her Manhattan apartment in November 2006, police initially suspected she had died by her own hand. Within days, investigators uncovered signs of a struggle and arrested Diego Pilco, a 19-year-old construction worker from Ecuador. Pilco confessed to attacking Shelly during an argument over noise, then staging the scene to look self-inflicted. The shocking revelation transformed what first looked like tragedy into homicide, and Pilco later pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter. Shelly's husband went on to found the Adrienne Shelly Foundation to support female filmmakers, preserving her legacy beyond the crime that cut it short.
I got a call from the detective, and he said, "Andrew, we arrested the guy who killed Adrienne." Not a minute of every day goes by without me thinking of Adrienne and what my daughter Sophie has lost, what the world has lost. This was going to be her moment. How are we here and she's not?
2007, Anastasia's fate.
It's a story that captivated the world for nearly a century. The tale of Grand Duchess Anastasia Nikolaevna, youngest daughter of Tsar Nicholas II, tragically killed alongside the rest of her family during the Bolshevik Revolution. Or was she?
For nearly a century, legends claimed Grand Duchess Anastasia Romanov somehow escaped the 1918 execution of Russia's royal family. Imposters surfaced worldwide, fueling countless books and films. But in 2007, science finally put the myth to rest. Archaeologists uncovered 2 partial skeletons near Yekaterinburg, close to the site where Tsar Nicholas II and his family were killed. DNA analysis by Russian and American experts confirmed the remains matched Anastasia and her brother Alexei, completing the Romanov family's genetic profile at last. The discovery ended decades of romantic speculation and closed one of the 20th century's most enduring mysteries, revealing that no Romanov children survived the massacre. History's most famous missing princess was no longer missing.
After all the rumors and speculation, years of false leads, dead ends, and imposters, a simple DNA test concludes that Duchess Anastasia, the last of the Romanovs, died alongside the rest of her family on July 17, 1918.
2008, the kidnapping of Shannon Matthews.
The search for Shannon is now an urgent one. The schoolgirl's family have been with police all day, and though it emerged that her older brother had run away in the past, she never has.
When 9-year-old Shannon Matthews vanished from her home in Dewsbury, West Yorkshire in February 2008, the UK was gripped by what appeared to be another heartbreaking child abduction case. Her mother, Karen Matthews, made tearful public appeals reminiscent of the Madeleine McCann search. But after 24 days, Shannon was found alive, drugged, and hidden inside a divan bed at the home of Michael Donovan, her mother's accomplice.
At lunchtime today, a team of officers smashed their way into this flat on Lydgate Gardens in Batley Car, just 1 mile from Shannon's home, in the heart of a community that has spent almost a month searching for her. Police are believed to have been tipped off by neighbours who'd heard the muffled sounds of a child in a place where a man lived alone.
Investigators soon learned the kidnapping had been staged in a bizarre plot to claim a £50,000 reward. Both Matthews and Donovan were convicted and sentenced to 8 years in prison. The hoax shocked the nation, turning public sympathy into outrage and forever altering how the media covered missing child stories in Britain.
She'd arranged for Mick Donovan to pick Shannon up from school, and Karen had gone home intending to tell Craig she was leaving, and that she'd just bottled it, is Natalie's words. And Karen just took this massive intake of breath and just said, "Yeah, you're right, that's right," and started crying, and truly they were the first genuine tears I've ever seen.
2009, the kidnapping of Jaycee Dugard.
As we've been reporting this morning, a possible break in the 1991 kidnapping case of an 11-year-old girl from South Lake Tahoe.
A woman showed up in Contra Costa County yesterday claiming to be Jaycee Lee Dugard. Anna Duckworth is in Concord for us this morning, reporting the woman and her mother are expected to be reunited today. Anna?
In one of the most astonishing survival stories ever told, Jaycee Lee Dugard was abducted near her California home in 1991 and held captive for 18 years by Philip and Nancy Garrido. The case went cold for nearly 2 decades until August 26, 2009, when suspicious behavior by Garrido at a university event led authorities to uncover Dugard and her 2 daughters living in a concealed backyard compound.
Basically, she was at work and she got a call from an FBI agent and informed her that they had Jaycee. And my wife was like, yeah, right, and he goes, no, really, we do. And he put her on the phone. But to me, it's a miracle. I mean, I never thought that after 18 years that we'd get her back alive.
DNA tests confirmed her identity, ending years of speculation and grief for her family. Garrido later received a life sentence, while Dugard's memoir and advocacy work shed light on systemic failures in law enforcement and parole oversight.
Do you ever forget for whole days what happened to you?
Oh, sure. It's not with me every day. I mean, that is over. Nancy and Philip are behind bars.
He hasn't tried to contact you, has he?
No, not at all. Which is fine with me.
2010, the Paulding Lights.
We came out here because somebody had heard about it. We were just sitting around a night, and some local people that we knew had heard about this. And that supposedly it was a ghost light that came, you could almost guarantee you would see it. And we came out here, and there was actually this guy who was doing a story on mysteries of the UP, and he told us about all these mysteries that existed all over the Upper Peninsula and the weird things that he'd seen.
For decades, a ghostly orb of light appearing on a rural stretch near Paulding, Michigan, baffled locals and spawned countless supernatural theories. Some believed it was the lantern of a murdered brakeman. Others swore it was alien activity or spirits haunting the forest. In 2010, the phenomenon was finally investigated by students from Michigan Tech's Society of Photo-Optical Instrumentation Engineers.
The original legend was that it was somebody who had been killed by a train conductor, and it was his lantern that was swinging. And then it kind of morphed into, it was a bar fight between a train conductor and somebody who was involved with the wife of somebody else, with a lumberjack or something like that, right?
Using telescopes and spectroscopic analysis, they traced the glow to a far more earthly source: headlights from cars traveling along a nearby U.S. highway, distorted by atmospheric conditions and the area's hilly terrain. The so-called mystery light wasn't paranormal at all. Just a perfect example of science debunking folklore.
Hey, how are we going to do this? We sit around, we talk about how might we use a spectrometer to measure the spectrum of the Paulding light. How can we apply statistics to make to derive or to show some sort of relationship between the Paulding light and what we believe to be the source of it, which is cars.
2011, the sailing stones of Racetrack Playa.
Hi, I'm Dick Norris, and this past winter I and my colleagues observed the rocks in motion for the first time. I'm going to show you a whiteboard demonstration of what we think is the mechanism. The racetrack is surrounded by mountains, and its surface is scattered with hundreds of rocks. The rocks range from pebbles to giant monsters up to 600 pounds.
For generations, the sailing stones of California's Racetrack Playa puzzled scientists and visitors alike. Massive rocks weighing hundreds of pounds seem to move across the desert floor on their own, leaving long, winding tracks in the dry lake bed, with no apparent force pushing them. In 2011, NASA researchers and geologists launched a detailed GPS and time-lapse study that finally cracked the case. They discovered that during rare cold nights, thin sheets of ice formed beneath the stones, allowing them to glide when light winds blew across the playa. When the ice melted, the stones' trails remained, revealing that nature, not the supernatural, had been at work all along.
This is an extremely rare phenomenon because the racetrack is dry 99% of the time. And when there is a pond and the rocks are in motion, it's still very difficult to observe. Rocks move incredibly slowly, the trails form out of sight underneath floating ice, and oftentimes you have multiple rocks moving together, so you have few stationary reference points.
2012, the murder of Jun Lin.
Jun Lin came to Canada 4 years ago with hopes of building a better future. He dreamed of one day opening a business here.
Lin Jun was like a very kind, very open, very optimistic guy.
He studied computer science at Concordia University and worked part-time at a convenience store.
In May 2012, Montreal, Quebec became the center of a horrifying international manhunt when the dismembered remains of Concordia University student Jun Lin were discovered in trash bags and mailed to political offices across Canada. Police soon identified the killer as Luca Magnotta, a low-level adult film actor whose online videos hinted at escalating violence.
This is a game for him. I really do. I think this is a game. This was not someone who's concerned about people knowing who he is. He wants people to know who he is. He wants people to know what he's done and that he can do it again.
Magnotta fled the country, sparking a global pursuit that ended dramatically in Berlin, where he was recognized in an internet cafe while reading articles about himself. His 2014 trial revealed a meticulously premeditated crime that shocked the world with its brutality and narcissism. The case became one of Canada's most infamous true crime stories.
Jun Lin's family sharing these precious photos, calling him brave, smart, adventurous, handsome, and strong. He was kind and always enjoyed helping others. To his parents, he was loving and considerate. As the only son, he was their pride and hope. They were counting on him to take care of them.
2013, the Tunguska blast. On June 30th, 1908, a massive explosion flattened more than 800 square miles of Siberian forest near the Tunguska River, releasing energy equivalent to 1,000 Hiroshima bombs. For over a century, scientists debated what caused it. Theories ranged from meteor strikes to alien ships. In 2013, researchers from the Russian Academy of Sciences published a study confirming the blast was caused by a massive meteoroid that disintegrated just before impact, generating an immense airburst. Advanced computer modeling and microscopic evidence from tree resin finally settled the question that had lingered since Tsarist times. The Tunguska event wasn't extraterrestrial sabotage or volcanic chaos. It was one of Earth's most powerful natural explosions. 2014, how the pyramids were built.
Egypt, historically speaking, was considered by most historians to be the true cradle of civilization. Carter and his sponsor, Lord Carnarvon, began in 1922 to dig for the hoped-for prize of an undisturbed pharaoh's tomb.
For centuries, the construction of Egypt's Great Pyramids baffled historians and engineers alike. How did an ancient civilization move and position millions of limestone blocks with such precision without modern machinery? In 2014, archaeologists made a breakthrough with the discovery of the Diary of Merer, a 4,500-year-old papyrus logbook found in the Wadi al-Jarf caves near the Red Sea. Written by an overseer who helped transport materials for Pharaoh Khufu's pyramid, the document detailed how limestone was ferried via canals and boats to the Giza Plateau. Combined with the discovery of a possible internal ramp system, this find finally offered a practical, evidence-based explanation for humanity's most enduring architectural feat.
The world had been given a glimpse of its earliest civilization. The tomb's priceless objects added their story to the jigsaw puzzle of antiquity's mysteries. The final resting place of King Tutankhamun, buried for thousands of years in the Valley of the Kings, made its contribution to modern-day man's clearer understanding of his ancient ancestors alive at the dawn of history.
2015, Benjamin Kyle's lost identity.
Closing crews there anywhere from 11:30 to 1 o'clock in the morning.
If his body had been out there unconscious, the closing crew would have seen him.
They definitely would have seen him.
Our office is open 24 hours a day to try to help this guy. We're very appreciative of what Dr. Phil and your show is doing, because I think this could be what he needs, what he's been looking for.
In 2004, a man was found unconscious behind a Burger King in Georgia, naked, beaten, and with no memory of who he was. Calling himself Benjamin Kyle, he lived for over a decade without identification, unable to work or access basic services.
Well, when he was first found, he appeared homeless and was shuffled from hospitals to homeless shelters. He was startled when he first looked at himself in the mirror after getting cataract surgery.
I didn't see a mirror until a week after the operation. Got up that morning and my vision had finally cleared up. I started to shave and I just couldn't believe how old I looked.
Despite extensive media coverage and FBI involvement, his identity remained a complete mystery. Until 2015, when genealogist Cece Moore and her team used advanced DNA testing and genetic genealogy to uncover his real name, William Burgess Powell. Born in Indiana in 1948, Powell had disappeared in the early 1980s. The revelation ended one of America's strangest modern identity mysteries and marked one of the first major successes of consumer DNA sleuthing in solving a cold case.
Your name, Benjamin Kyle, where did that come from? Because you don't know that's your name, right?
No, I'm convinced that Benjamin is my name. You talk to psychiatrists, they say, well, maybe my mind just made it up, but, I'm convinced it is. We include in the odd spelling, ending in M-A-N instead of M-I-N.
2016, the murder of Jacob Wetterling.
Good evening. A stunning cold case confession today in Minnesota appears to bring a 27-year-old murder mystery that gripped the nation to an end, as a family that has lived with decades of anguish and uncertainty finally learned what happened to their little boy.
For 27 years, the disappearance of Jacob Wetterling haunted the United States. The 11-year-old vanished in 1989 after being abducted near his home in St. Joseph, Minnesota, sparking one of the nation's largest missing child investigations. Then, in September 2016, the mystery was finally solved when Danny Heinrich, long suspected in the case, led authorities to Jacob's remains and confessed to the murder.
Heinrich told the judge, "I was driving on a dead-end road. I noticed 3 children on their bicycles with a flashlight." At the time, Jacob's brother described how the 2 of them and a friend were held at gunpoint.
He told us to put our bikes in the ditch and lay down.
Heinrich says he drove away with Jacob, handcuffing him.
His plea deal provided long-denied closure to Jacob's family, who had spent decades campaigning for children's safety reforms. The case's resolution helped inspire the Jacob Wetterling Crimes Against Children Act, which created the first federal sex offender registry. Jacob's story, long a symbol of grief, became a testament to the power of persistence and parental advocacy.
For us, Jacob was alive until we found him.
Now they have excruciating answers to the tragedy that has consumed their lives, along with fresh grief, even after all this time.
2017, the disappearance of Etan Patz.
This evening, the New York City Police Department is announcing the arrest of Pedro Hernandez, age 51, of Maple Shade, New Jersey, for the murder of Etan Patz.
The 1979 disappearance of 6-year-old Etan Patz was one of America's most haunting cold cases, helping ignite the nation's missing children movement. For decades, police pursued false leads and confessions, while Etan's face became one of the first ever printed on milk cartons.
He turned and he walked half a block across the street, another full block, crossed West Broadway, and then the bus stop was right here.
So this is a total block-and-a-half walk?
Yeah.
A block and a half, and for a 6-year-old, about 223 steps to that school bus.
His mother could actually see children starting to line up to get on the bus.
In 2017, justice finally arrived when Pedro Hernandez, a former New York store clerk, was convicted of kidnapping and murdering the boy after luring him into a basement on his way to school. Hernandez's conviction brought closure to a case that had tormented New York City for nearly 40 years, ending one of the longest-running mysteries in U.S. criminal history.
That tragic walk changing the way parents sent their children off to school.
Millions of parents sat at home and thought, there but for the grace of God goes my child.
2018, the Golden State Killer identified.
Investigators now telling us they used discarded DNA to help track him down, genealogy websites, and a long process of elimination sifting through family trees.
For over 40 years, California lived in fear of the Golden State Killer, a masked predator responsible for at least 13 murders, 50 sexual assaults, and 120 burglaries across the state between 1974 and 1986. Despite an extensive investigation, his identity remained unknown for decades. That changed in April 2018, when DNA evidence and genetic genealogy techniques led authorities to Joseph James DeAngelo, a former police officer living quietly in a Sacramento suburb.
DeAngelo, a Navy veteran serving in Vietnam in 1973, then joining a police department around the same time the alleged crimes would begin.
He outsmarted everybody for 40 years.
Farrell Ward worked with him on the force.
He kind of knew what the next step was going to be.
Neighbors say DeAngelo was an average suburban homeowner, except for his temper.
The breakthrough marked one of the biggest triumphs in forensic history, proving how new technology could unmask even the most elusive criminals. DeAngelo would later plead guilty to multiple murders, finally closing a case that had haunted victims and detectives for generations.
And I'm really sorry to everyone I've hurt. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
2019, where Stonehenge came from.
We found it, and you're like, oh my goodness. One of those kinds of, hairs on the back of the neck moment.
Professor David Nash analysed the stones using X-rays and a core sample from the 1950s.
How had prehistoric builders transported and arranged such colossal blocks on England's Salisbury Plain? In 2019, researchers finally pinpointed their source, West Woods, a site roughly 15 miles away.
Compare the chemistry of this rock against samples from across southern Britain where sarsen stones also occur. And by doing that, we're able to identify a direct chemical match with one area about 15 miles to the north of here, a place called West Woods on the Marlborough Downs.
Using geochemical fingerprinting, scientists matched the composition of Stonehenge's megaliths to stones from that quarry, solving a question that had lingered for generations. The finding, published in Science Advances, revealed not only the stone's provenance, but also the astonishing logistical skill of Neolithic builders. After millennia of mystery, the path of Stonehenge's stones was at last traced back to their true home.
We now know where these stones come from, and that means we can ask new questions. Which route did they bring them over? How exactly did they extract them? Can we find the sites where the individual stones actually came from? So this is opening up a whole number of other avenues of research, but at least we've answered one big question about Stonehenge.
2020, Zodiac cipher cracked.
I hope you're having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That's part of the chilling taunt from one of the Bay Area's most notorious serial killers, now decoded after 51 years.
I mean, that sounds very Zodiac to me. If you look at the other writings that he sent in to us and other papers, it indicates the Zodiac knew what he was doing in codes.
For more than half a century, one of America's most infamous serial killers taunted authorities with coded messages that no one could decipher. The Zodiac Killer's 340 cipher, sent to the San Francisco Chronicle in 1969, remained unsolved despite decades of effort by cryptographers and the FBI.
I am not afraid of the gas chamber, because it will send me to paradise all the sooner, because I now have enough slaves to work for me where everyone else has nothing.
The FBI in San Francisco confirmed that the sleuthing had paid off. In a statement, the Bureau said the FBI is aware that a cipher attributed to the Zodiac Killer was recently solved by private citizens.
Then, in December 2020, an international trio of amateur codebreakers, David Aranchak, Jarl Von Eyck, and Sam Blake, finally cracked the message using custom software and advanced pattern recognition. The decrypted text didn't reveal the killer's identity, but confirmed his defiant tone and disturbing psychology. The FBI verified the team's solution, closing one of true crime's most enduring puzzles.
Now, over the years, there have been many people identified as the Zodiac Killer. No arrest has ever been made. One thing of note, Andre, one of those code crackers, at least one of them, wasn't even born at the time of this killing spree.
2021, severed feet on beaches.
Police in the Pacific Northwest are scratching their heads after a human foot in a running shoe washed up on shore. Thing is, it's not the first time it's happened. It's not the second or even the third time that it's happened. ABC's Neil Karlinski has the story.
Starting in 2007, beachgoers across the Pacific Northwest began discovering severed human feet, usually still inside running shoes, washed ashore along British Columbia in Canada and Washington State in the US. The bizarre phenomenon sparked morbid fascination and rampant speculation about serial killers or plane crashes.
A citizen called Vancouver police to report that they'd found what they thought was a foot and part of a leg, and the leg bones washed up here.
8 feet have been found along the coast of British Columbia, while 3 more were discovered along the coast of nearby Washington State. Nearly all of them have been found in running shoes, leaving one magazine to ask if the Reebok Ripper was on the loose.
By 2021, investigators finally had answers. DNA testing and forensic analysis linked nearly all of the remains to victims of accidental drownings or people who had taken their own lives, whose feet naturally detached and were preserved by buoyant sneakers. The final confirmed cases closed one of the strangest mysteries of the 21st century, a sobering reminder that the ocean's currents, and not a killer's hand, were to blame.
It does happen on other coastlines around the world. It's not unusual.
Ultimately, the mystery was solved after years of forensic work and combing through missing persons reports. 10 of the 12 have been identified.
2022, the Summerton Man.
Now, a man who has dedicated his adult life investigating the case thinks DNA has provided the answer.
The best match we found to the Summerton Man happened to be somebody in Victoria.
The development began more than a decade ago, when researchers were given a piece of the Summerton Man's hair.
For over 70 years, the mysterious death of an unidentified man on Australia's Summerton beach confounded investigators and conspiracy theorists alike. Dubbed the Summerton Man, he was found in 1948 with no ID, a cryptic note reading Tamam Shud in his pocket, and links to a secret code scribbled in a book of Persian poetry.
You keep trying to find out how they related to each other, and you move them around like a Sudoku puzzle. And then finally, you find the consistent way they all fit together, and the missing piece is the person you're trying to identify.
And that person is Carl Charles Webb, born in Melbourne in 1905.
In 2022, forensic genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick and Professor Derek Abbott finally cracked the case using DNA analysis and genetic genealogy, identifying him as Carl Charles Webb, a Melbourne-based electrical engineer. The discovery unraveled decades of speculation involving spies, lovers, and Cold War intrigue, revealing instead a tragic but ordinary man whose identity had simply been lost to time.
We may now know who the Summerton Man was, but we still don't know why or how he ended up here on this beach. Why did no one report him missing or recognize him? Why was his suitcase left at the train station? And what was the significance of the poetry and the codes? For now, the case is still far from closed.
2023, the murder of Carol Sue Klaber.
Investigators have provided Othram Labs with a hair sample that was found at the crime scene 46 years ago. That hair sample hits a home run. It rules out the existing persons of interest, but crucially, it points to a new name and a new prime suspect.
Nearly half a century after 24-year-old Carol Sue Klaber was found dead along a roadside in Walton, Kentucky, police finally solved her 1976 murder. For decades, the case grew cold despite multiple leads and suspects. Then in 2023, advances in forensic genealogy provided the breakthrough investigators had been waiting for.
Because they had an STR profile, they were able to do one-to-one comparisons to exclude suspects. And I think there was 2 people early on that were identified and ruled out because their STR profiles did not match at all the STR profile of the crime scene.
DNA evidence linked Klaber's killing to Thomas William Dunaway, a Kentucky man who died in 1990. The finding brought long overdue closure to Klaber's surviving family and demonstrated once again how modern science continues to breathe life into the coldest of cases. The solution stood as one of the year's most satisfying examples of persistence and progress in criminal forensics.
The news that we got back was, this is a 100% match. Thomas Dunaway is your guy that committed the crime.
Thomas Dunaway is who we, through the DNA profile, identified as Carol Klaber's murderer.
2024, the disappearance of Lina Delsarte. In September 2023, 15-year-old Lina Delsarte disappeared while walking to a train station in the French region of Alsace, launching a massive search. Over a year later, investigators made a breakthrough. DNA matching her profile was found in a stolen car linked to a suspect. On October 16, 2024, her body was recovered in a wooded area near Nevers. Authorities concluded her death was likely caused by mechanical strangulation, based on forensic evidence including fabric found around her neck. The find ended a heart-wrenching mystery over Lina's fate and provided closure to a grieving community still grappling with how a routine trip turned so tragic. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. 2025, Woman in the Well.
Nearly 20 years ago, a construction crew excavating this Saskatoon corner uncovered an old well. Inside were pieces of a wooden barrel and a woman's body. Her identity has been a mystery until now.
Alice Spence is not invisible anymore.
On June 29, 2006, crews in Saskatoon uncovered an old well containing a barrel with the skeletal remains of an unknown woman, wrapped in burlap, dressed in early 20th century clothing, with men's garments among the items. For nearly 20 years, she had no name, but in 2023, a lab built a DNA profile from skeletal evidence.
We believe we know who did it, but it's 100 years old. That person does not have the right to defend themselves in court today, so we're going to leave it at that.
The case now considered closed.
Investigative genetic genealogy using DNA from teeth and hair led to an identification, announced September 29, 2025. The woman in the well was Alice Spence, née Burke, born September 1881, a seamstress who moved from Minnesota to Saskatoon's Sutherland neighborhood in 1913. Police believe she died by foul play between 1916 and 1918. The ID closed a century-old mystery and reunited descendants with a lost branch of their family tree.
Cindy Camp, Spence's great-granddaughter, admits she first thought the investigators' call was a scam.
The idea that someone was reaching out to us about a relative we didn't know under such unusual circumstances seemed too strange to be true.
Camp says her grandmother never spoke about her family, and she's grateful to finally have the details come to light.